give us some more information about what it is that you're doing?
Okay, so let's start with the problem. In Africa, one of the main healthcare problem we have is malaria. Just to make it simple, malaria is killing a child every 2 minutes. So it's completely scary.
Every 2 minutes, that's pretty scary.
That's pretty scary. It used to be like worse than that. It used to be like every 30 seconds, like 10 years ago. So it's getting better.
30 seconds, okay,
like,
so there's an improvement, but from 30
huge.
seconds to 2 minutes in 10 years feels slow.
Yeah, 2 minutes is still like a lot of things. One of the key things about malaria is that it's carried out by or transmitted by a mosquito called Anopheles. And the Anopheles have a special behavior. They bite at the evening, starting in the evening, and stop biting usually, in most of the cases, in the middle of the night.
Okay, so you've got a tight window in which the disease is transmitted.
The founder of the project has kind of like the insight of the founder is that the only product that is used almost in the entire Africa, and is from Burundi, is that soap. Soap is a very simple product that is used in the evening on kids, and kids are the kids under 5 is like 90% of the victims of malaria.
So malaria is really, the children under 5 are the ones who are most impacted. And pregnant women.
Yeah, mainly.
Okay, so it has quite a significant impact. It's not like it's going after the elderly. I'm talking like mosquitoes are selecting people.
Yeah, so the fact that the kids are actually washed in the evening with soap. And actually, we made a big study on 1,000 people in Burkina Faso. That's the place where we are. We are based in Ouagadougou. We shown that more than 80% of kids under 5 are washed with soap. So that actually confirmed like one of the insights of Gérard in Burundi. It's the same thing in Burkina Faso. We have people also in Cameroon that tell us the same thing. So that's a key thing. So the idea is very simple.
So it's a mosquito repellent that is in soap.
Yeah. The fact is that you don't change habits, and the kids get to, just like people wash the kids the way they do usually. And the challenge we have, the technical challenge that we're working on, is that you don't change anything and the kids get protected for 4 hours. Why 4 hours? Is that you have all the outdoor activities in Africa, like a time window of like 4 hours where they're not protected usually. And that's actually when we want to protect kids and just to prevent malaria.
So that sounds brilliant. Essentially what you're doing is saying this is the way that people work. They have a shower, they wash themselves at a certain time. They tend to use soap as opposed to sort of shower gel. And we know that mosquitoes come out around about the time that they have their first wash. So therefore, we're going to have them wash in this soap that will protect them.
Exactly.
Simple, right?
Very simple.
So getting it out must be simple then too, right?
Of course, it should.
So where are you at the moment in this project?
So the project was created at the beginning by an African engineer called Gérard Nyandiko. He's from Burundi, but he came to Ouagadougou for his engineering studies. So he started being a student, like in 2013. And after his studies, he started his project, so continued working with a colleague. And the project, it was very tough, to be honest, like evolving innovation in Africa or like in sub-Saharan Africa, and especially in Burkina Faso. It's like the 3rd poorest country in the world. You can imagine.
So there's loads of investment available there, then, right?
Yeah, of course. Investors are knocking at the door all the time. You have to,
you're turning them down.
So it's actually very tough. It has been very tough for Gérard at that time actually to continue the project. So he was working part-time for an NGO, part-time on the project. And when I arrived 2 years ago, the project was almost stuck. I mean, it was impossible for him to move forward because, as we said in the previous session, our previous speaker, is that healthcare is kind of like capital intensive or demanding, I don't know how to say that. And we came to a point where the money wasn't there and the project couldn't go forward. So we have the fact that we are from Burkina Faso is kind of clearly a barrier. And the fact to work in healthcare is also a barrier because it's like more. It's not like an IT. You building up like a new app for a new iPhone app. I mean, I'm coming from this world, so that's pretty easy. I mean, you work like crazy for a week, and you just can launch something.
You just launch it, and you're ready to go.
Like for us, like the timeline for me is like completely different because there's our goal is to have the product qualified by WHO, so that like UN agencies and NGOs actually start using it. So it means like loads of series of like tests, indoor, outdoor, that are required, and it's actually So the entire research project and is expensive. So it's one of the hurdle, I guess.
So I guess that expense isn't helped. So like when you refer to an app generally is launched somewhere in the Western world to solve Western problems, and therefore in an area where there's lots of people who've got the skill set to do it, and secondly, lots of investors around who are able to help. You're solving a real life problem in one of the poorest countries in the world. How do you get people outside of that space who've got the skill set and the funding to be able to support that interested and bridge that gap?
I think one of the first problem is that with the African projects I've seen in Burkina Faso is that they try to do things in the country and they don't try to look outside. Maybe they don't they don't feel competent enough, or I don't know, they don't look outside usually. So
it's a lot of homegrown, everybody here, and we'll muck in together and we'll make it happen.
Exactly. And what when I arrived 2 years ago, was like, okay, let's try to do the best product possible. What are the best substances? What are the best technologies we can use in this soap? And we should stop thinking just on a local or national level. We need to look outside. So
you need international help to solve a real local problem.
Exactly. So we had to, for example, we are testing very high-tech chemistry, I should say, like microencapsulation is how do you put your repellent substances in a capsule that are microscopic, and so that it actually stay on the skin, stick to the skin, and release progressively the substances so it can last for hours. So that's kind of the type of challenge. And you go to Africa, and nobody does that in Africa. I mean, this and that's
just the concept alone is no, come back in 20 years' time when our technology is involved.
And if you go in France, there are not so many people working on that in France neither. I mean, or in France or in Europe. We've been contacting.
Well, I don't think there's many people working on it globally. So
yeah, we've been contacting the 12 better experts on the subject, and we just listed all the constraints we have, and we were hoping that they were saying it was possible, and some of them told us that's very difficult what you're asking. Nobody asked us. I mean, something is that difficult, but we think that could be possible. So that's okay, we're not completely lost.
At least we have hope.
Yeah. I was we made the idea was just to contact all these experts and to see among the people who answer what would be their position on or challenge, and the majority of them told us it's freakingly difficult, but maybe possible. So that's what we are in.
Okay, so in that sort of situation, you're now in one of the poorest countries in the world, wanting to come up with a very simple solution to a very well-known problem, but the solution itself isn't easy, and you're in a culture that wants to keep things in-house, but even the experts globally are struggling.
Yeah, definitely. Nobody has tried. I mean, there is very simple repellent, so-called repellent soap. I mean, in Africa, in Ivory Coast, but they don't work. I mean, so it's more like a marketing thing to say, people are always beaten all the time when you're there. So it's a nice marketing compelling argument, but it doesn't actually work. So I guess, so there are not so many people working in trying to do soap. I know there's one in the US, we've seen that, with a different type of, idea. But that's stuff. And so we decided just to go and find research centers, and we luckily enough found ones in Nantes, actually, in France, working for us, Capsulae, and the biggest soap factory also in France is working with us. And we have we also have research centers in Burkina Faso. The one that are the National Center Against Malaria is providing us support, and also providing us the little mosquitoes we need to making the tests. So.
And where have you found most of these funds? Where have they come from so far? Because like you said, it's very capital intensive at the beginning. It's not like creating an app.
I guess you have to be creative when you're there, because there's. So when I arrived, there was no money, so I put my own money. I find completely stupid, although I'm not African, I said and it cannot be possible. In 2015, how could such a project could be just stopped I mean, given like the size of the problem. So I just put my own money, but I'm not that the son of a billionaire, so I didn't have so much money to invest in to put in the company.
After a while, that tap ran
I couldn't
out.
last long. Anyway, like
It gave you a little bit of longevity, but then it started running out. Okay.
exactly. So I was a bit scared also when I saw my bank account, and so we did a crowdfunding campaign last year. So where we've been quite successful, we raised like 70,000 euros for the project. So it really helped us like moving forward with our research. And little by little, we're convincing more like foundations. So we have like Veolia, Caritas, Eli. There's like 5 or 6 foundations that helping us, but like always Deloitte foundations, those but it's always like with like kind of like small amount of money. And as soon as we're moving forward, there's like more money like required. So the philanthropic world is as its limits. So we're still kind of like between these two worlds, like the philanthropic world, with like usually like little sum of money or like not like big sum of money, and we're still not into the position I think to actually require the help of like real investors because we haven't like proved yet. I mean, we haven't reached the level of protection that we are
You're still in that kind of
at.
R&D stage. That's
exactly.
a little bit too
and so
early.
it's kind of like challenging. I think we like I told you, like a UFO. We feel like being UFO. Like we not so many people that are in Africa doing private research on like being like social enterprise in Africa doing private research. So we haven't seen much of them. No,
and do you think the government has a role to play in this sort of funding? I mean, it's a very African problem. Not to say that malaria is limited to Africa, but it's very much prevalent in Africa. Do you think that the government has a role to play? Is there government funding available for these sorts of projects?
It should, but again, we're pretty new. I mean, this type of factor that like FasoSoap didn't exist before. There are not so many people doing like that. Usually what you see on malaria, it's like traditional research led by university, especially in the UK. They're like pretty working a lot on that for whatever reason, I don't know. But like in France, we're not working so much on malaria, although it's affecting like previous like French colonies. So it could be, a motive for action. But usually, yeah, there's a traditional way of like having financing like university research with lots of money, and after usually transferring the discoveries to like a private sector, big companies also. And so the UN the government is usually financing those type of initiatives. UNITAID or the UN also is usually financing those guys because they were the only ones before. And we're just like, hey,
over here.
By the way, and the level of finance. I mean, when you look at, I mean, the amount of money that is given to like research, public research, or on this type is quite good. I mean, it's I wouldn't say that there's no research on malaria. There's lots of research on malaria, but on our position is very difficult because we're not corresponding to what people have seen before. So it's like, you're African. I went to a WHO big meeting in Madrid, and it's funny because people like were amazed to see like an African initiative. I'm not African, but it's coming from Africa, and people they were like, I've seen like few people were just telling me that that's so cool to see like things coming from Africa, and not. So it's the beginning of a change, but it's still.
It sounds like it's the beginning of a big change, and you touched on this a little bit earlier in terms of the important components of the solution that you're creating. You mentioned that it's been really important that the end result of this soap doesn't change people's behavior. Were there other principles like that you're working for in terms of the design, like the cost or something like that, for example?
That's an interesting question. Piloting by impact. So, again, we could launch a repellent soap maybe earlier on, but it would have no impact on malaria. So we actually the organization that we created is called like 100,000 Lives, and because that's our goal. Like our goal is not to make money just to make money. I mean, we see ourselves as a future company, but our goal, our first goal, is to save lives. And so it's not like just make the first prototype that works barely on the market and
launch
say like,
it and then see.
Good, like we have a repellent soap. Because that won't do what we want. We want is just to have to prevent death. I mean, of kids. Sorry, it's not very glamour what I'm saying, but that's what we want to do. So it means not piloting by commercial or business or like we're gonna make money quickly. It's like piloting by how can we have the best impact. So it's just change everything in terms of like where we are, with who we partner with. So if you want to have money, what goes behind the mind of the people who give money. Depends also in which country you will focus first. Is the countries because that have money, or the countries that have problems.
That has
we have
problems.
been contacted by people from the Western world or in countries where there's mosquitoes, because mosquitoes are just a pain in the ass for again half of the world. And half of part of the world have money just to buy maybe an expensive soap. So we could create an expensive soap that works, but no. So it's we want it to be safe. Because it's on kids, so it's not on adults, it's on kids, and the skin of kids are pretty fragile. We want to be efficient and want to be affordable, and that's the three things that makes the project very difficult, and that's why we're still in the research phase. Is that if you remove one of these criteria, we could be on the market, but still, when to respect the three criteria, so to have an impact, it's tough.
And I love what you say about the importance of the actual impact of what you're doing versus it just being a commercial venture. It sounds like you've got that beautiful balance between something that actually makes money, but fundamentally, first and foremost, that it has an impact for the people who need it the most.
Yeah, that's the good thing about when I arrived in Ouagadougou. I didn't know whether I would stay like 5 hours or 10 years. It's really I was in San Francisco and said I completely fell in love with the project, and I flew from San Francisco to Ouagadougou. And the fact that we were with Gérard, the founder, completely in a line on that, saying the money is the mean for an end and not the other way around, and something that really is inside me. I mean, we should definitely make money, scale, and everything, but the priority is just solving a problem that is like malaria. So I don't know if I answered your question, but
you absolutely did. I've only got time for one more question, and I think it's probably a really important one. How many here love what Franck is up to? It's pretty awesome. How can these people help? You're here at ChangeNOW. You want to make an impact. What would be really helpful to you? What are you looking for at the moment that would be really useful?
Just follow us, follow what we're doing, our little adventure. There's we publish things on Facebook, so it's always good to have a community of people that follow our project and that can talk to people and other people about what we're doing. Right now, we don't think we'll make another crowdfunding. For example, we won't ask money from people right now, so it's not the thing that I won't say open your wallet.
There's not an open crowdfund at the moment, okay? So this is not a bid for money.
It's not a pitch for money. It's more for a pitch for making our project
for
support and yeah. So right now, from the audience right now, is just was just more for introducing the project and creating contacts of people that might be interested to know more or to think that can bring something for the project. So.
Fantastic. That's all we've got time for at the moment. Ladies and gentlemen, please put your hands together again for Franck Langevin.